So, Secretary of State, thank you for joining us today. It's a little opportunity to explore a few of the issues you raised in the talk you've just given. Could you tell us a bit about some of the visits you've been doing and perhaps some of the things that you've taken from the work that you've been doing at the front line?
Yes, I've done lots of different things. In some places I've been cleaning bedpans and commodes, and other places I've been giving out teas and coffees. This morning I was giving out lunches in an elderly care ward in East Surrey Hospital. And I think I've learnt more from doing that than I've ever learnt from being behind a ministerial desk. I think you learn about the commitment and the values of people working in the NHS, and I think particularly you realise how hard they're working when we have to deal with the pressures of an ageing population, demand going up inexorably year after year, and you realise this is a system which is running hot. People are under a great deal of pressure, but on the whole doing a fantastic job.
Given that problem of running hot and looking at the finances, and in particular some of the pressures that are coming perhaps associated with where we are financially, what's your feeling about the prospects for financial year 14-15 and 15-16? Because I think some of the feeling, talking to some of the national bodies, is that there's a sort of growing concern there. It's
going to be very tough, no question about it. I mean, we have had 4 years now of flat real, at a period where demand has been going up by between 3 and 4% a year, so we've been having to find savings every year, and that has been hard, and it's going to continue. And we need to continue to innovate. We need to look at more imaginative ways of organising services. We need to embrace the technology revolution. But I'm confident we can do it, and I think that there is a willingness to embrace change in the NHS to make those savings. But I don't want to pretend that it's going to be easy.
I want to talk a little bit about the open culture required to sort of get some of the quality improvements that we've needed. But while we're trying to create this open culture, there's also very strong pressure for performance. I mean, and I think this has been, in the past, one of the difficult things to balance. How do you see it as reconciling that tension?
Well, I think all organisations need to have targets and objectives, but that has to be done within the bounds of excellent patient care. And I think what we had before was an unbalanced system where essentially the definition of a good hospital was somewhere that met its targets and was in financial balance. But there wasn't a proper balance in the system to make sure that they didn't do that at the expense of good patient care. So I think whilst it's important to have those objectives, it must never be at the expense of having, the proper number of nurses on wards, for example, because in the end, short staffing is a false economy. You'll end up having safety incidents. You'll end up with people staying in hospital longer than they need to because they're not looked after as well as they might do. You'll end up with people not being discharged properly. And so I think we need to understand that there's a balance of objectives that hospitals have, and we need to be better at taking a holistic view of their performance, which is what the new Chief Inspector of Hospitals will do. So,
but while he's doing that, we've also got increasing numbers of hospitals creeping towards financial problems which may require intervention. Do you think that's something that keeps you awake at night?
It's definitely a pressure for the NHS, but I would dispute whether you have a choice or a trade-off between good finances and good care. The best organisations are able to do both. And more often than not, you actually find it's poor care that goes with poor finances, and you sort out one, you sort out the other, because in the end, not looking after your patients is a false economy. It leads to all sorts of problems, and it's just not the way to run a hospital.
So finally, getting the right leaders to do that is a bit of a challenge, it seems, that finding people who want to be chief executives and directors of nursing is looking like a bit of a challenge. Are you concerned about the sort of the leadership in the NHS? It's something you referred to in previous excursions here.
Well, we have fantastic leaders in the NHS, but we need more of them. And one of the things we need to do is to attract more people into leadership in the NHS, and particularly more clinicians, because if you look at the best hospitals in the world, the vast majority of them are run by clinicians. And so we've set up a scheme to attract more top clinicians into management. I think we could also look at what we can learn from leaders outside the NHS, which is why Sir Stuart Rose is advising us as well. But if you put all that together, and if you have an objective scorecard by which the progress of a hospital is measured, which is what we'll have with the new Chief Inspector of Hospitals, I think you've got something that's very attractive for someone who could be a good manager, and that's why I hope we'll attract many people to do it.
Thank you very much indeed.